Hi, I'm Roxanne Richardson, and this is the Casual Friday podcast. This week, I have so much to share. It's really more than I can fit into a 45-ish minute podcast. So my plan is to hold back a couple of segments that I was going to put into this week and then upload it as a separate bonus Casual Friday next week. In this week's podcast, we're kicking off Finish It February 2025, and I'll share some progress I've made on one of my February projects, which I started a little bit early. I'll take you behind the scenes of the yarn mill at Get Bentz farm, where I got to help transform some lamb fleeces into yarn. I also have some finished hand-spun yarn and some amazing gifts from viewers. So let's get started. So tomorrow is the official kickoff date for Finish It February 2025. So I usually talk about Finish It February, in the month of January leading up to it, so that if you are unfamiliar with it or had forgotten about it, you can prepare for it. Really, Finish It February is just an opportunity, and I say that and I mean it. It's an opportunity to address your UFO pile, your unfinished objects, and just reacquaint yourself with them. And so typically, as you go through them, you put them in one of three piles. The yay pile, I absolutely want to finish this at some point, whether it's right away or not, but I love this, want to finish it. That goes in the yay pile. The next category is the nay pile. Like, I am done with this project. It's not finished, but I'm done with it. I do not want to keep working on it. So that goes into the nay pile, and then you do have a couple of things to think about in terms of how you want to get rid of it. You can throw it away, you can donate it, you can trade it with a friend, you can turn it into something else potentially, you can frog it, or you can just return it as is to your stash so that you're not putting any more work into it now, but you know that that yarn is available. So how you deal with that is up to you. There are a lot of possibilities. And then there's the pile of ambiguity where you really don't know how you feel about it. So just go put that pile of ambiguity back where it came from, and then you can look at it again next year to see if your feelings have changed. I had things in that pile of ambiguity for year after year, and after 4 or 5 years, I thought, okay, I don't feel like I want to finish it. This probably means I'm done with it. So sometimes that can just take a few years to figure out. So in the past several years, as my UFO pile has gone way down and at one point was completely eliminated, I realized that there were projects that I had worn a lot and really liked, except for one thing. And so I'd use Finish It February as Fix It February to modify that item or to add something additional to it to make it more useful to me, so that I would like it even more. Some people use it to mend things. I actually, if I have time, there are a couple of things that I need to fix the cuffs of. But my primary two things are these two sweaters that I knit last year and either completely finished or almost, just needed to do some seaming and didn't like the way they turned out. And so that's what I'm addressing this year. I was on a road trip a couple of weeks ago and I was working on a pair of socks, and I finished those socks either on the trip or right when we got back. And so I had this kind of 2-week gap where I didn't know what I wanted to work on. I have a sweater, a brand new sweater I want to work on. I have the yarn for it. I'm really excited about it. But I know that if I start it, that's what I'm going to want to work on. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to start working on my Finish It February things now so that I'll get those done. And when everything is off my plate for Finish It February, then I can move on to the new project. So I started working on my Danish night sweater, or traditional Danish sweater. It was a project where I had inadvertently had one skein that was in a different dye batch. It was independently dyed. So I had 3 skeins that were all the same and 1 skein that was different. And thought that the sweater for sure needed 3, but might need a little bit more. That's why I bought the 4th skein. And I, without realizing it, used the one skein that was different to knit the 2 sleeves in the first bottom front band. It's a split hem sweater. There's a front band and a bottom band, and once those are done, then you join in the round. And it took me a little while into the second skein before I realized the mismatch. So the way that the body looks right now, you can see on the back there's that different colored ribbing. So I just finished the body completely with the color that I had 3 skeins of, and realized that I would need slightly more than 3 skeins. So I had to use some of that dark yarn. So the 2 sleeves had been knit with the dark, so I ripped back one of the sleeves down to the cuff. So I'm keeping the cuff dark, and then I reknit the sleeve, and you can see what a difference blocking makes, because this one has been blocked and this one has not. So I will need to rip back this one back to the cuff as well. I kind of want to separate the knitting of the sleeves, because knitting 2 sleeves in a row for the second time, even though the first time was months ago, not the most fun thing. So reknit the first sleeve, and I decided, since the cuffs of the sleeves were going to be different, rather than reknitting this bottom band to match the front one that's the same as the rest of the sweater, because there was this, I had to use some of the dark. Since I was using some for the cuff, I would knit the other bottom band with the dark and then take the bands off and reattach them. So let's go to the overhead and I'll show you what my plan is for that. So the challenge with this sweater and getting the new band on here is that the way that they're knit separately, and then they're overlapped so that you're working stitches together. So you eliminate, I think you eliminate 5 stitches on each side, so that you're eliminating 10 stitches altogether. Then you knit this round of purl stitches, and then you knit a round of stockinette where you are increasing 10 stitches. So you're getting your stitch count back. So I don't want to reattach things in this area where there's overlapping and eliminating stitches, and then trying to graft in a place where you're taking into account increases as well. This stitch pattern has this zigzag of purls, and so the final row is mostly stockinette, and then you have 1 purl stitch, and then stockinette. Then you have an entire round of plain stockinette, and then you have a round of purl stitches. And you don't have a plain round of stockinette after that. It just goes right into purl stitches. So to me, this seems like the ideal place to cut and graft. So what I'm doing to prepare for that is picking up the purl stitches. So this row of purl stitches, you see upper bumps and lower bumps. The lower bumps are the running threads between stitches, and that are the running threads of the stockinette stitches above. And the upper bumps are the purl bumps, so that's the head of a stitch. So I'm looking stitch by stitch, I'm coming in and I'm capturing the right leg of that stitch right below that purl bump, so that I'm capturing this row. Then I will snip that stockinette row right below there in order to separate everything out. After I separate this main part of the body from this lower part, then I will frog this back until I get to the last row of the border, because I need to remove that so that I can then use the 2 dark borders together and join them together the way these 2 are joined together. Once I do that, I will switch back to the light color and I will re-knit this band up into that part of the zigzag where there are 3 stitches, and then I will do the grafting. Now the issue with grafting is that the live stitches that you have on one needle are not any kind of a stitch. They're not a knit or a purl. So as they come off the needle, they become a knit or a purl. But then you have the grafting thread, which is creating a row. So I'm going to be creating 2 rows as I graft. So what I will be doing is I will be knitting this final row that has 3 purls and then a bunch of knits, 3 purls. That will be what you see under the needle. And then the live stitches of the row above it, as I graft off the needle, I will have to create this purl bump, and then the grafting thread will create this stockinette row. Probably what I will do is a swatch that has a couple of repeats just to make sure that I know what I'm doing and that I'm figuring this all out correctly and have that strategy. So there will be just, you know, an occasional purl bump, and then at the edge here as well, there's the columns of purls. The little cables, the 2-stitch cables, the crossing occurs after the point where I'll have the graft, so I don't have to worry about that, but I will have a few purl stitches in the round that I need to consider. For those of you who are just now finding out about Finish It February and think that's a great idea for you, in my Ravelry group, which I will link to down below, I have a discussion thread for Finish It February. It's a chat thread where you can post pictures of what you're planning on doing. You can give updates. You can ask people their feedback on things. It's like being in a make-along, but you're bringing your own project that you're making or finishing or fixing, whatever it is. And then tomorrow morning, Saturday, February 1st, I will open a new discussion thread in my Ravelry group that will be a no chat thread. And that's where you can post things that you have finished or fixed in February. So you'll post a photo. A before and after is always great, so we can see where things were and then now where they are. Photographs, you can say what the pattern or the yarn is if you know or remember how long this has been a UFO. Sometimes things have been UFOs for decades. So that's always fun to see. And then anything else that you want to say about it. So this is a no chat thread. You can post to this thread, post your things, but you can't reply to anybody else's posts. And that thread is used to supply the photographs for the end of month video montage. And so I've been doing that for years to celebrate everything that people have finished. And the quality of the photographs and the quality of the knitting has just gone up year after year after year. It's been really fun to see. So you are not required to participate in the group chat or post anything to the no chat if you don't want to. If this is something that you're interested in doing for yourself, that's great. You do you. If you participate in social media and you want to show your things off, you can give a hashtag FIF 2025 on like Instagram or Blue Sky. If you're on that platform, I am on Blue Sky as well. I would love to see the progress that you guys make. And again, I will only use photographs from the Finish It February no chat thread. And that montage will be its own standalone video. Probably the Friday after, the first Friday in March. That's not a normal Casual Friday date, so I'll just do the video montage for that. So I hope that you are excited and wanting to join in on this. It's an opportunity that I look forward to every year, particularly in the summer when I get fed up with a project and I need to shove it in a bag somewhere. I know that I'll bring it out again in February. About a year ago, I signed up for a year-long experience called A Year with the Sheep at Get Bentz farm in Northfield, Minnesota. It's about an hour south of me here in Minneapolis. And the idea is that you go to the farm. It's a sheep farm, but it's also a mill. She's got a yarn and fiber processing facility on her farm as well. Very small. It's just Teresa. And so the idea is that you come out right after the lambs are born and you get to see the farm and learn more about how she runs her operation. You help, you get to hold the lambs and help with the whole ear tagging process that's done shortly after they're born. And then we went out to the farm about every 5 or 6 weeks, I would say, during the course of the summer. So you see the lambs growing and you see how the farm changes over the course of it. And then she would give us tours of her mill and the equipment that she'd been acquiring and the things that she was doing. She got a grant through the state to establish a dye garden that was not indigo based, the first garden that was not indigo based that got a grant like this. I believe they do grow indigo in addition to the other plants now, but initially that was not what the grant was for. She has installed solar panels on her mill so that it is run on solar energy. And she's constantly doing things to improve the farm and make it really sustainable and reclaiming land and putting in native plants and trees and taking out the invasive ones. So it's really been an interesting time. In September was the shearing event, and unfortunately I couldn't be there. There were quite a few people who couldn't be there, but we've been invited to come next September so that we don't miss that opportunity. But we all did get to choose our own lamb fleece. So a week or two after the shearing was done, my friend Elizabeth, who also was doing a year with the sheep and also missed the shearing event, we drove down together and we picked out our fleeces. So the part of the deal is that they could be processed in whatever way we wanted, or if we wanted to do everything ourselves. Most of the people, not everyone, is a spinner. So we took our fleeces home and we scoured them. I have plenty of fiber that needs to be spun, and I did not want to spin this myself because we were allowed to come down and watch it and help with the processing of it if we wanted to. And to me, that was going to be a real learning opportunity and something that I can't normally get with my spinning fiber. So the idea was we were going to come down on Monday, the week of January 20th. So several of us will be there the 20th, and we could come for as many days as we wanted to see the different parts of the process, because there's the picking of the wool to fluff it up before it goes through the carder and becomes roving. Then it gets drafted thinner, and then it goes through the spinning machine, and after everything has been spun, then the machinery is flipped so that it can then do the plying, and then the final thing is skeining it up into hanks. So whatever part of the process we wanted to be involved in, we could. And I really wanted to do as much of it or see as much of it as I could. Unfortunately, it turned out that January 20th and 21st were really cold here in Minnesota. The temperatures got down to minus 18 Fahrenheit, which is about minus 25 Celsius. And then there was the real feel, the wind chill. So it was minus 18 Fahrenheit, but minus 35 real feel, which is almost the same in Celsius. When you get down to minus 40, they're the same. And she has heat in her shed where the fiber mill is, but it just can't keep up when it's that cold outside, and it has to be at least 50 degrees inside the shed for the machines to run. So my schedule is really flexible, and so I was able to go down Wednesday, and I was the only one who was able to go. So I got to watch most of the process. So she was running the picker, the machine that the picking goes through. So she had the bags and different fleeces for each person. They'd go through the picking machine, then that would get bagged up again. And then I got to operate the carder. And we started with the white fleeces. And I was carding 3 white fleeces that she was turning into yarn for her business. And then it was a white fleece for one of the participants, and then a light gray fleece, and then a darker gray fleece, and then a really dark black lamb fleece, and then finally mine was at the end because mine was the darkest. When I picked that fleece, I picked it because I was just amazed at how dark it was. Sort of not caring how hard it would be to knit with that yarn. I just thought that was such an amazing color. So I took some video of the different stages, and so I will kind of narrate that and put those little clips in on the screen so that you can see it. But I'm also going to link to some videos by another fiber mill. They're in North Dakota, and they have a channel called YouTube, EWETUBE, and you can more clearly see how their machines work and understand more clearly what's going on, in part because they've taken off all of the safety cages around their equipment, so you can really see what's going on. The picking machine, she would just dump the fleece on this conveyor belt and it would go through. She wouldn't have to monitor it at all. And before it would go in, she gave it a little spray with some conditioner, some fiber conditioner. It's mostly water, and then I'm not sure what she has into it. Different people have different formulas. Sometimes they use different kinds of oils, sometimes they use other products. And the point is to keep the static down, because in Minnesota, the kind of cold we have is a dry cold. When it's that cold, it's very dry, and things get very staticky. And so if she didn't spray it with this, a lot of the fiber would just go flying up into the air. So after the picking, then it goes into the carder. And so my job was to weigh out 2.5 ounces at a time and lay it out on the full distance, the full conveyor belt that was visible before the safety gate. And that amount, that was the proper amount for it to get fed into the carder. And I would also give it a couple of spritzes before it went through the carder, because she said, if you don't, it goes to the carder and then it just floats up to the ceiling. At the other end of the carder, it comes out in this kind of really flat web, really thin sheet of combed or carded fiber. And then it gets kind of funneled and turned a little bit. They call that a false twist. It's just kind of getting folded together and then run through a tube, and that creates the roving. So then there's a barrel that just grabs all of this roving as it's piling up. It kind of looks like soft serve ice cream piling up in there. And then when I would do the next color, like I might have an ounce left of the final of one fleece, so I'd measure out 1.5 ounces of the next one, and I'd put it right there, and then we would time it to see. It would take, she had the machinery running pretty slow because it's a coarser fiber. It's an Icelandic Cheviot cross. When she's doing finer fleeces, she can go a little faster. So it was taking about 3.5 minutes for it to get fed into the carder and for it to run through the carder and then come out. And so I would know that when I had switched from one fleece to another, about 3.5 minutes later, we could watch it coming off the carder. And as it got rolled into the tube of the roving, it would look like a blend. And so she would know to break that where the one color officially ended, and then she'd wait for the new color to just be officially started, break that off, put that mixed part into the waste pile and get another bin, and that would collect that fleece. So it was a little trickier with the two final fleeces, the really dark brown fleece and then mine, which was even darker. It was so hard to tell the difference between them when it was coming off the carder. Later on, we could see in the rovings, you could see, because it was more condensed, you know, this flat sheet to being something condensed, you could see that there was a distinct difference in the color. She spun my roving into yarn a couple of days later, and my friend Elizabeth was there to get hers processed because she was having sari silk added to hers, but she got to see my yarn getting spun and plied. And it turned out there was a little bit of the previous fleece that roving got into mine. So there was a section, I have a section of kind of mixed and a little bit lighter brown in my yarn. I went to a knitting event on Sunday that she was at, and she brought my yarn with me, and I had a little bit over 1,000 yards. I think it was 1,080, but then some of that was the lighter brown. And I was thinking, okay, I can make a sweater from this. It's a heavy worsted or an Aran weight woolen spun yarn. And I thought, oh, as long as I'm careful, I could probably get a sweater out of this. And I've been planning the sweater. And then she texted me yesterday and said, oh no, I found another cone of your yarn. And I'm just going to wind it on on the skein winder, and then I'll tell you what the yardage is. So I actually have another couple hundred yards, so no problem with enough. So let me just show you how dark this is. And it's going to be hard to really see because it's so black, then that screws up the white balance on the screen. But this is the yarn. And to give you a perspective of how dark it is, and again, I don't know if you'll be able to see the difference. When I did my breed study a couple of years ago of 30 different breeds, several of them were these black sheep. And you can see that they're different colors. They're not all the same. So the one right here, this is a zippered. So these are black sheep with a white blaze on the nose and a little white tail and white socks on some of their feet. This is Welsh. A Welsh mountain black or something like that. There's a white version and a black version. And then the one down here is Jacob. So Jacob comes in different colors, and like the sheep itself will be in different colors. And so you can separate those colors out. So I felt this was like the darkest I'd ever seen. And they're actually dark brown. They're not like jet black at all. This is darker. So let me, I don't know if you can tell. I don't know if you can tell in this, but my yarn is darker than that. So it's going to be a trick to knit with. I'm going to do something fairly simple. I do have a little tiny bit of a stitch pattern in mind, just something that will make it have an obvious texture to it, but it isn't going to be something so fancy that it would be a waste of time to try to knit and really difficult to read in the fabric. So I'm really excited about this yarn and the opportunity that I've had with the Year with the Sheep. It's been amazing. And I had some more questions when I picked this up at the knitting event. It's this monthly, it used to be Brew and Knit with You, but now it's Brew and Make with You. And they meet at a different brewery every month around the Twin Cities. I was asking her more questions because after going, watching all of the spinning and watching what she was doing, it just takes a while to really absorb it. And so then I had a bunch of questions about it. And she's like, if you want to come another time, she said, just text me and ask me when I'm going to be spinning using the spinner, and you can come down. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm really excited about that opportunity in the future as well. A couple of months ago, I think it might have been early December, my friend Trish at Fiber Love Diary was doing all of these live videos where she was making bats on her drum carder, and she takes combed top of different types and she just kind of paints it directly onto the drum carder. She's not carding it through there, and she would ask the viewers, like, come up with a theme, and then what color should we use, and should I do this and should I do this? And I was watching one of them. She's like, well, I have time to do one more. And we came up with this theme of Northern Lights, and I was Googling what are all the colors that the Northern Lights could be in. She gathered all those colors, and she made this bat, and I was like, this is the most amazing thing. And then she put it up in her shop right after the live stream was done, and I bought that. And I had never spun anything like this. She she turned the bat as she took it off of the drum carder. She turned them into these giant rolags. So there's 5 of them. And if you don't understand what that means or you want to watch it, I will leave a link to that video down in the video description so you can see the process. I'm going to put a photo on the screen right now that shows you what one of those rolags looked like. It really did look like the Northern Lights. And I was so scared when I was spinning it that I was going to ruin it or it wouldn't come out the way I'd hoped. I would say that I'm pleased with how the yarn came out. I love how the colors play out. I'm not convinced that my spinning was really good on this. It was just such a different spinning experience. I will put this in the overhead too in a picture. So if you want to look at the side by side of what the rolag looks like versus the finished fiber, I would say this is probably a bulky weight, and I didn't write down how much yarn was in here. I counted it. I counted the yards when I took it off, but I didn't tag it, which was a mistake. So I need to figure out what I'm going to make with it. So, you know, it's the kind of thing where I want to use as much of it as I could. I don't wear things like cowls, but it might be a good hat, or it could be something I could incorporate into, I don't know. I don't know what to do with it. I should probably do a swatch just to kind of see how it knits up and what to expect from it. But I was really pleased because I had no idea how that sort of light, airy fiber, what was going to happen when it was condensed down into singles and then plied together. So, so this is a real learning experience for me. But I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I just think Trish really knows what she's doing in terms of color proportions and color combinations. Really, really amazing. Just wanted to show you this Northern Lights yarn up close so that you can see what it looks like. It's got all the colors of Northern Lights. You may or may not know that I have a post office box, and sometimes people send me things. The post office box is listed on my channel page. When you look at the channel description, you can click on a little, you see part of the description, and you have to click more to see the rest. And it has things like the email address associated with my channel, as well as the post office box. So sometimes people send me things. And this week I got a couple of packages in the mail, so that I thought I would open them with you so we can see what's inside them. So I've got these 2 packages. I believe these are from the same person. They were shipped from different locations. This is a viewer in Belgium. So this first package right here, it says it's from Redbubble, which is an independent artist on Redbubble sent this to me. So, oh, it's a t-shirt. I'd rather be knitting. Oh, this is great. So I love a good knitting t-shirt, especially in the summertime. When I can't wear my wool sweaters, I do like my knitting related t-shirts. So that's wonderful. So there's some cats and some knitting needles and yarn. So I believe that the person in Belgium has designed this, and then they're getting printed here in the US, and so they can get shipped here within the US. So let's open the other one. Now this is the thing that I remember she told me about, which is that she's doing these pouches. And this is pretty funny. This says it's a time out bag. So Finish It February is starting, and this is the time when we take out projects that we've put in a timeout. So I love this, that this is a timeout bag. Keep the naughtiness contained until it's time for Finish It February. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was so thoughtful of you to think of me and then send these to my P.O. box. So I got a second package in the mail, this one right here. And I'm going to open it. I'm going to move the camera above. I kind of have an idea of what's in it, and I'm super excited about it. So let's go to the overhead. All right, so let's get this opened. So there's a lovely note in here. This is from Linda Rose. Just a quick note of thanks. Your videos and warm curiosity have filled my spirit and have lifted my spirit and my skills. So glad to share these treasures with you. When I found them in a Friends of the Library sale, my heart and mind said, I bet Roxanne would be interested. And I'm so glad to make it so. From Linda Rose. Thank you so much. So you don't get to see my excitement as I was unwrapping all of these books. These are the books that was in there, and I was opening them one at a time and going through them. So I'll just go through them again, and it won't quite be the same. This one is called the Ladies Knitting, Netting, and Crochet Book. This is a book. It was originally published in 1842 by Mrs. Gaugain. So this is Jane Gaugain. This is like the first real, it's not the first published pattern book, but it's the first book that really lays patterns out in a logical way, because this is very early in the knitting pattern publishing timeline, and so people were just doing things their own way. But she was very methodical about it. She and her husband had a haberdashery shop in Scotland, and so she sold yarn to these ladies in the middle class who didn't grow up learning to knit. So she would teach them to knit, and she would write patterns for them so that she could sell yarn. This is for Pauline, and it's really hard to read what this last name is. It looks like B-E-U, Bowstruck, maybe, or Benstruck. The gift of her affectionate cousin, Sophie Hawkins Whittier, London, 1844. So this book was given as a gift way back then. And so there are little pictures here of some of the different stitch patterns that are in here. And so this is the 4th edition. This is a very popular book, but it's the first book, but it's the 4th edition. So one of the things that she does is she lays out a list of abbreviations. So A means to take in 3 loops into one by slipping the first loop off backwards without knitting. So slip a zip to purl. Knit the second and third loops together, then lift the first over the taken in loop. So this is a slip 1, knit 2 together, pass slip stitch over, only she's saying to slip a zip to purl, so that top stitch is going to end up being twisted instead of slipping a zip to knit. But she's specifying which way to do things. And so she's got all these abbreviations. This is an upside down A, taking the back stitch of 3 by slipping off backwards without working the first, purl the second and third loops together, lift over the first slipped one over the taken in loop. So this is the purl version of that. So she's got all these abbreviations, and then she would lay out her patterns. So first row, P edge, and then she's got these different abbreviations. So these are not the abbreviations we would use today, but they make it much easier to read the pattern instead of having this wall of text and explaining what you want to do every single time. She often prefaces a pattern by explaining how it's constructed, so you'll have an idea of what you're knitting at what point. Most patterns, even that were published after this in the 19th century, didn't do that. I mean, it took maybe a century or more before that. This is something we do now where we explain how something is constructed ahead of time. But so she was a woman before her time. So this is that first book. And this is something I have in digital format, but I never thought I'd be able to have an actual physical copy of this. This is amazing to me. It's also amazing to see just kind of how small this book is, because when they're digital, you can't really tell. So we've got another one here. Somebody put a cover on it to preserve it. This one has got Isabel Modark. And this one is volume 2, again by Mrs. Gaugain. And here we've got some hand-colored pictures that show how some of these designs are going to look. And it's receipt 130 and 144. So receipt is the word for recipe, meaning the pattern, what we would call a pattern today. Showing how to do different things. There's drawings. Just so cool. So this is volume 2. And then we have volume 3. And I don't know if anybody's name is in this one. This one is not, no name in this one. So this is the 3rd volume. Again, you see those abbreviations all the way through. Oh, there was one, it might be in the 2nd one. Let me see. Maybe it was in the 1st one. There are colored pictures in here. Or maybe it's in the 3rd. Let me see. Oh, here it is. This little, this is like a cardigan or jacket, and it's called a polka coat. And here it says Polish police. And so they were for children and also for women, and they were meant to look like they have ermine collars here. So this was all done in knitting and some fancy things. I think Engineering Knits might have made a polka jacket. You could check out her channel and see. I think she may have done one of those. I just love these hand-colored things in here. It's just amazing. These are a treasure to have these 3 Jane Gaugain books. Now the next one here, this one is called Knitting, Netting, and Crochet by Mrs. Jackson. So again, a tiny volume. So Elizabeth Jackson, this is 1845. And so it's got different things, knitting and netting and crochet. So they have baby bonnets, baby hood, ladies undercap, a ribbed muffetee, or ribbed muffatees. I think those are fingerless mitts. I think that's what muffatees are. A muff, porcupine purse, and fringe, all kinds of really neat things. And again, there's some engravings in here as well to show what things are going to look like, which is nice, especially for something like lace, to know what it is you're going to get. So we have all these images in here. And then the final book is this one right here. This is Knitting and Sewing by Maud Churchill Nicole. And this is an American book. This is published in New York. And it's how to make 70 useful articles for men in the Army and the Navy. Copyright 1918. So this is World War I. And so if we look at some of the things, they have 5 fancy stitches for mufflers, scarves, single brioche, double brioche, cardigan, or knit one, purl one, rib stitch, diagonal stitch, triangle stitch, all kinds of cool things. So again, some of these are knitting and some are sewing. So they're calling this one a Peary helmet, and you could wear this under an actual helmet. Just covers the neck. There's one back here where this is called a balaclava helmet. So this has got a flap. I don't know if it also goes down and back, but like this would fill in the neck of your coat to keep the wind from coming in. I saw something, this is a sleeping helmet, which I don't know if this is like to cover your eyes, if that's, and it's you're using eider down flannel. There was another thing in here I saw when I opened it the first time and wasn't recording. This cap and muffler combined. So this is like the Musselborough hat. where it's that long tube that's closed at each end, only they have a pom-pom at each end. So if you've got this as a doubled up hat, you've got a pom-pom on the inside and the outside. But if you undo it, then you've got a scarf or a muffler. So that would wrap around your neck and cross in the front, I guess. So I thought that was kind of cool. So these are amazing. I am so thrilled to have these books. The Jane Gaugain books, that's just such a thrill. I can't even tell you. So thank you so much, Linda Rose. This is so amazing. I can't believe they were just for sale at the library sale. Incredible. As I mentioned, I will have a bonus episode of Casual Friday for you next week, where I will have tidbits, yay tidbits, and a finished project that's going to take a while to explain. Well, that's it for this week's Casual Friday. If you have any comments or questions about today's video or suggestions for videos you'd like to see in the future, you can leave those down in the comments below or join the discussion in my Ravelry group, Rocks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.